Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. If you've never seen me before, then my name is Emma Brown and I'm a makeup artist. So I basically paint faces for a living, which is great. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you my take on what I think is like a classic Valentine's look. So because I am just the best friend ever, I'm going to treat you all and show you how this looks with two lip colours. So obviously the first one being the bright red lip colour that I've got on here, and then another one being a nice pinky nude shade, just because I know that some people still really don't like wearing a red lip, which I totally get because I wear nudes all the time. So yeah, on the eyes I've just gone really classic dark brown smoky eyes with a little bit of a bronzy shimmer, just because I think for Valentine's it's not like you've overdone it, it's not like you've tried too hard, but you still want to look a little bit seductive and like you've made a little bit of an effort. So yeah, if you'd like to see how this makeup looks. So if you'd like to see how the rest of this makeup works well with the nude lip, then please keep on watching to the end. But yeah, if you want to see this makeup look, then please keep on watching. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom you right in as usual. Try and find my eye. That is not my eye. There we go. Okay, so as always, I'm going to start off using my trusty P. Louise base in the shade Rumour 02. And then to pat that base onto my eyelids, I'm going to be taking the Zoeva 144... Let me start that again. So Zoeva 144 soft concealer brush, and it's just like a typical rounded flat brush, and then I always take a wet wipe and kind of like push the bristles together so they're flat, if that makes any sense. And then I'm just going to be stamping that product all over my eyelid. And then to buff that base out, I'm going to be using a angled fluffy brush like this. Ooh, like this. And then just blending them edges out and making sure it's nice and seamless, just so we have a really good canvas ready for the eyeshadow. And then for my eyeshadow, I'm going to be taking the Barry M Shipwreck palette that looks like this. And I'm going to be taking that warm brown shade on the bottom row right here. And then what we're going to do is actually called backwards blending, and it basically means that rather than using like a lighter shade and a darker shade and so on to kind of build up the depth, we're going to be doing it the other way around. So I always start with the darker colour now and then I kind of blend it out afterwards, so you'll see what I mean now. So I'm just using the Sosu SK02 brush, and it's kind of like a medium size, I don't know, you can see what it is. I can't describe these brushes at all. And then we're just going to be packing that right onto the crease in kind of like a semicircle shape. Again, don't worry about it being too neat, it really doesn't have to be neat at this stage because we literally build this colour probably about 10 times before I get it to the density that I want. And then now we have that shape on there, I'm going to be picking up the Imagination Makeup Revolution palette that looks like this. Sorry, it's filthy. And I'll be taking the shade Imagine, so where is it? So it's kind of like a slightly lighter shade of the colour that we've already got on the lid. And then with this, I'm going to be using a small kind of tapered blending brush like this, so just one that can kind of get into the crease a little better. And then we're just going to be doing the same kind of motions but along the edge of that other colour. Again, I'm just going to be tapping onto those edges, not worrying about blending just yet. And then now we can start blending it. And then as usual, I kind of like to keep my eyeshadows quite far over and to the underneath of my brow, like as you can see here, so you can really be quite messy with this look. And then I just keep alternating between dabbing motions and then also kind of like a swirl. So is it swirly motions? Whirly motions? Don't know, you decide. So you should have something that looks like that. So you could leave it here, it has kind of got a nice blend to it, but I've just got OCD when it comes to blending and I feel like I literally need that edge to disappear. So I'm going to be taking the Get to Know shade, again from the Imagination palette, the Imagination palette, and it's kind of like, again, like more of a warmer orange shade like that. I don't know if it's picking it up as good on camera. And then with this, I'm just actually using an MSQ brush, and this is just from eBay, so I'll link them below. They're really good, especially if you're just starting off. And then, as you may have already guessed, we're just going to go back over the edges one more time. Not really too much about dabbing with this one, as I don't want too much colour on there anyway. The only reason we dab is to try and build up that pigment, but I really want this to be quite soft, so. And then literally blending it right into the upper, whatever part of the brow. So that's like that. And then we can just softly go over the rest of the edges then. And then now this is the boring part, because we're literally just going to repeat all three of them steps all over again. So starting with the darker shade, then the medium shade, and then the lighter shade until we have the colour that we want. And this is what I like to call sandwiching. So if you think about it, you literally just sandwiching then layers over and over again until we get the maximum pigment that we want. Okay, so I've just repeated all 3 of them steps, and now we should be looking something like this. And as you can see, the edges are still not slightly diffused to my liking. So as you can see on this side, if you can kind of see beneath the lashes, it's a little bit softer than this one. So to kind of get rid of that, I'm going to take a really fluffy brush. Don't know what that was, hey. I'm just going to take a really fluffy brush like this, and then just tap in a little bit of my Hoola bronzer, which I'll be using on the face later, and just literally following them edges. Oh, it'd be good if you could see, wouldn't it? And then literally just following them edges right round. I'm barely touching my skin as well with this. I'm literally using the lightest hand possible. Okay, so for the eyelids, I'm going to be picking up the Mehron Pro Colouring, and I'm going to be taking that reddy browny kind of cream shadow there. However, I'm literally just using this just because it's what I've got near to me and it works. So if you've got like kind of any other brown cream bases, or you could even use the P. Louise base, which we also used earlier. So yeah, it doesn't really matter, just as long as it's kind of got like a tacky finish to it. So when we stick that shimmer on, it's going to pick up a little bit better than if we weren't to put anything down there at all. So I'm just going to pick up that colour I just showed you with this brush, just kind of like a flat synthetic brush, and then I'm just going to be stamping that onto the eyelid, starting at the very base of my lashes and working my way up. I know this looks quite red, but obviously that's what I meant by just using like any kind of primer or anything that's got a bit of stick to it, because obviously we're not going to see that redness once we've got the shimmer on anyway. The only reason I'm not using the P. Louise base is just because I feel like I can make a mistake using that a lot easier than by just using this. Doesn't have to be too neat at all. We're not doing a cut crease here either. It's just literally placing that colour onto the lid. Okay, and then for the lid, I'm going to be using again the Barry M Shipwreck palette, and I'm going to be using this bronzy colour there. And then I'm literally just going to be placing that exactly where I placed that what I think. And I'm just going to be placing that exactly where I placed the cream base. And then I'm also going to put a bit of that colour onto my finger. I'm pressing that on top just to get a bit more pigment down. I feel like for some reason the finger will always work better with shimmers. And then just make sure the edges are seamless and you don't really see that line. I'm just going to be going back in with the dark brown shade we used earlier, and then just blending out them edges. Like that. Okay, so for the final step for the eyes now, which is going to be, well, for the upper eyes, the lid, I'm just going to be taking the dark blackish bluish colour there from the cream palette which I used before. However, feel free to use gel eyeliner, it would work just the same. I'm just going to be lining my upper lash line, keeping it really, really tight as I don't want it to look too harsh. Oh, and sorry to do this, I'm using the Sosu SK06 brush, which is kind of like a very small flat brush. And then I'm just going to be taking any kind of black eyeshadow, so I'm just going to be using the black that's already in the Barry M palette just because it's a lot easier. And then I'm going to be winging out the eyeshadow. I like to use eyeshadow for this rather than normal eyeliner, just because I think it keeps it look a bit softer and a bit more subtle. So obviously if you're on like a date night, then you're not going to be scaring your man away with your eyeshadow. Another reason I like to use eyeshadow for wing liner is it's a little bit easier because you've got a bit more control, because you can kind of just build the colour up, whereas when you use like an intense black eyeliner, when you make one mistake, it's like the hardest thing ever to remove. Okay, and then taking the dark brown shade from earlier on a little pencil brush. This one's just the Sosu SK04, and then softening them edges out. And then to clean that up, I'm just going to be using a wet wipe, and then I'm just going to be following the edge of that up into my temple. Okay, Okay, and then the eyelid is pretty much done. It really is as simple as that. With this kind of look, to be honest, I kind of like to let the eyelashes do a lot of the talking, so as you can see, the eyelash just really finishes off the eye. So I'm just going to put a bit of mascara and then put my other eyelash on, and then we'll go on to the face. Okay, so both lashes are on now, and I use the Yasmin Cosmetics London Lash for the pair that I always use. Okay, so for foundation, I'm going to start using the Benefit Professional Primer and then applying that onto my T-zone. And then I kind of just like rub the rest of my fingers together and kind of pat that primer in. And I feel like that's what really does the best job of making your pores look smaller. Okay, so for my foundation, I'm going to use a mixture of two. I'm going to be using the Lancome Teint Idol Ultra Wear, and it's just in the shade 045. And then I'm going to be using the Maybelline Superstay in 36 Warm Sun. So I'm just going to be mixing that on the back of my hand and then just dotting it onto my face first before we blend it out. And then to buff this out, I'm just going to be using this little miniature Real Techniques blending brush. This just came in like a little Christmas bauble gift set thing, but I think they do obviously do like a big version of this, but just any kind of like dense flat brush will work quite well. And then I'm just going to stamp that onto the skin. I normally use like a beauty blender for this, but I've been loving how full coverage a brush like makes my foundation lately. I just kind of like to get that base layer on first, and then I can go back in with the beauty blender to kind of make it look more seamless and sheer it all out then. Okay, so I'm just going to take some of this setting spray from the Body Shop. It just looks like this. Any setting spray will do really, and I'm just going to be spraying my beauty blender, well, my beauty sponge, because you're not meant to call it a blender if it's not the real thing, but it's basically the same thing. So I'm just going to be spraying that and then getting it nice and damp, and then just squeezing that product into the sponge like a little stress ball. And then taking what's left on the back of my hand and kind of like dabbing that over the rest of my skin. Whatever's left on the sponge, I'm just going to take right down my neck. And never forget the bits under here and like on the side of your ears as well, because they're the kind of bits that most people always tend to forget about first. But if you've got your hair up or something, and or like if the wind blows, then it's like always the most noticeable part. Okay, so now to conceal, I'm going to be taking the LA Girl Pro Conceal in the shade Classic Ivory, and then I'm going to be applying that in usual kind of places, so underneath the eyes and in the centre of the T-zone. And then what I've been liking to do, because I've noticed that my lip is quite uneven on this side, I like to kind of draw underneath it on either side to kind of clean up the edges. And then when I go back in with the lip liner, I can kind of make them more even myself then, if that makes any sense. Okay, so now taking the Zoeva 144 brush, I'm going to be using that concealer to really kind of clean up the edges and sharpen the underneath of the eyeliner. Making sure to keep checking front on as well, so that we've got so that you get the wings even, and you've not got one that's going like too straight and then one that's going like too high. Okay, so I think those are quite even now. And then I'm going to be using the same brush which we used for the foundation earlier, and then just blending the edges of that concealer out. And then to get right underneath my eyes, I'm going to be using a smaller brush. This is another MSQ brush, and it's just like a small dense concealer brush, and then just working that underneath the eye and then softening that line. Okay, and then now to brighten even further, I'm going to be using the Lasting Perfection Concealer by Collection, and it is the shade Extra Fair. And then because this is so fair, I'm just going to be using a very small amount just underneath the eyes and down the centre of the nose, a little bit on the chin, just anywhere on the T-zone which we didn't already use the concealer before. Okay, and so that concealer doesn't go too cakey because of all the different layers, I'm going to be taking that spray again and just dampening with a sponge and then blending it out with the sponge. Because we're using a setting spray as well to dampen the sponge, it's going to be like extra long wearing, so not only are we using the dampness to kind of diffuse the product and make it melt to the skin and help it look a bit more natural, it's also going to help literally lock that foundation onto the skin. Because when you're on a date night, you do not want your man thinking that you've got shit makeup, because they will judge. I'm messing, by the way. You shouldn't give a shit what anyone thinks about your makeup. Okay, so I'm actually going to be trying a new powder today. So this is just the Makeup Revolution Luxury Powder in shade Banana. I actually got this ages and ages ago. I remember using it, and for some reason I don't think I liked it, but yeah, I know that Makeup Revolution have actually released new shades in this. I did find this a little bit yellow, but they have got a lighter shade, so I thought I'm going to try this again, and then if I like the kind of formula, because even if it's a bit too dull, then I'll know then whether to get the lighter shade or not. So I'm going to give that a go, and hopefully it will not ruin my makeup. So I'm just grabbing the lid from the Miron palette I've used, but just use anything. So yeah, it is like very yellow, but hopefully because I've got a little bit more of a tan, I can get away with it a bit more. Okay, and then we're just going to be setting the under eyes and then baking with it. So what I like to do is I actually like to take just like a small amount of product, so I get a bit like that, and then kind of dab it on the back of my hand so it's not dead thick, and then actually seal that concealer in place. And then I like to do this before baking because I find it helps stop it from caking up a little bit more. Shade's not too bad actually, but I just like a really bright under eye, so I feel like I benefit quite a lot from the light banana powder. Okay, so now we're going to bake using that same powder. So I actually like to use a damp sponge again to bake, just because I feel like it stops my under eye from getting really dry, and then picking up quite a lot of that product. And then I just kind of like to pat it in everywhere else. Okay, so while we let that bake cook, I'm going to be using the Miron palette and taking that dark shade which we used earlier. And again, you can use gel eyeliner for this. And then I'm just going to be placing that into the lower waterline, as we want this look to be really nice and smoky and seductive. And then I'm just going to be connecting that outer corner with the upper lid. And then now I'm using a short shader brush like this, and then buffing that eyeliner right out. Again, it's a little bit easier if you just stamp that product onto the eye first and then buff it out afterwards. And then I'm just going to be taking a mix of the Imagine shade and the Get to Know shade from the Imagination palette, so those two which we used earlier, and just taking a flat fluffy brush and then blending the lower waterline. Okay, so now I've taken the Love Conquers All palette by Makeup Revolution, so like this. I'm going to take the big heart-shaped colour here, the baby pink, it's nice and quite fitting with it being Valentine's, and then spraying a small brush and then using that for my inner corner highlight. Okay, so I'm just going to complete the eyes by putting on some lower lash mascara, and then that is the eyes all complete. Okay, so I've just zoomed right out, and I'm just going to dust the rest of that bake off underneath my eyes using a fluffy concealer brush. And then I'm just going to bronze using my Hoola bronzer. I'm just using an angled brush for this. This one's just by Spectrum, the Spectrum A05 brush. I pretty much use the same kind of techniques with all my makeup, to be honest. So I always start with dabbing motions and then blending afterwards. Just going to change up my brush actually, that one's looking a bit patchy. Just using like a more denser rounder brush, just so I can get a little bit more precision. And then I kind of like to blend out the corners of the eyeshadow in with the bronzer here. Okay, and then I'm going to contour a little bit using this little Real Techniques brush. This also came with the other one, with the Christmas collection. And then I'm just going to be taking a little bit of that dark brown shade, well, what's left of it anyway, and then a bit of them two bronzers, and kind of just mixing a little bit of each. And this is the Tarte Contour palette. Okay, and then for blush, I'm actually going to be using a mixture of two things together. So I'm going to be using a bit of the Benefit Peachy blush, and then the, I can't remember the name, but it's the Anastasia Beverly Hills Rose Gold highlighter. And this is going to actually kind of make my own shimmer blush, just because I don't want to add any more mattness to my face as it is feeling very dry. And then as you can see, it just gives a really nice peachy blush, but also acts as a bit of a highlighter. Obviously we're going to put highlighter on top of this because, you know, love my highlight. And then I also like to bring this again across the sides of my nose, because even though it's not summer, I still want to look sun-kissed. Okay, and then for highlight, I'm going to be taking the Mirror Luminizer highlighter by The Balm. It's kind of like a champagne gold highlight, and then I'm going to be using this on the Sosu SK01 brush, which is kind of like a tapered large fluffy brush and popping them right into the top of the cheekbones. And then taking a little bit of that down the centre of the nose and on the cupid's bow. And now to help melt them products into the skin, I'm going to go all over back with the setting spray again. So, and then don't move for like a good 5 minutes. Whilst that setting spray is well setting, I'm going to be taking the Rimmel Dark Brown eyebrow pomade, and then I'm just going to be going back over my eyebrows a little bit. And then I just like to go back over everything with the sponge to make sure everything's seamless. And then a little bit of that Hoola bronzer and going right under my lower lash line. I'm going to be bringing a little bit of that Hoola bronzer down the side of my nose just to kind of connect it with the eyeshadow. Okay, so for my lips, I've decided to treat us all and do 2 colours. So I know a lot of people don't really like to wear reds. Now I did really want to do a red of this look because that's like all I think of when I think of Valentine's. But I know that there's people there that don't like it, so I'm going to show you how these eyes look with both like a nudie pinky lip as well as a red, so you can kind of like pick and choose which one you want. So I'm going to apply the nude first just because it's going to make a little bit more sense to do that. It's going to be a little bit easier to wipe off. You might hate me a little bit for this because I literally have used this nude in every single video, but I just love it so much, so I can't help but use it, sorry guys. But I'm going to show you a way to spice it up a little bit. So I'm just using Rimmel Spice lip liner to line my lips. And then going in with that shade Unbuttoned by Fenty Beauty. Okay, so you could leave it like that and it's just like a nice matte lip, but what I like to do is like to actually take the inner corner highlight I used, that like baby pink shade in the middle there, it's kind of like a highlighter, and I actually like to just take out my finger and then pat that onto the lips. And what this does is it kind of makes sure that you've got a gloss on, but you haven't, and it just makes your lips last a lot longer. Yeah, I don't know for anyone who follows me on Instagram, if you've seen my last post, it was a girl with like Ariana Grande style hair, and this is what I did to her lips, because I know I had a couple of yous asking. But yeah, I used the exact same colours, and as you can see it kind of helps draw out that colour in the inner corner and it kind of brings everything together. So yeah, you could leave it like this. But obviously Valentine's Day I've got to try red lips, so I'm going to wipe this off and then we'll show you that. Okay, and then for the red I'm just going to be taking the Red Rush lip liner by Max Factor. And then taking the shade Uncensored, again by Fenty Beauty, which is a matte red, and then applying that all over the lips. Okay, so there we go. So feeling a little bit like Mother Shirt with my dark black hair. I can't actually work out which colour's my favourite, but let me know what your favourite is actually in the comments down below because I'd love to know. So that is the finished look all complete with 2 lip colours. I really hope you enjoyed this video and hope you have a nice Valentine's Day, whatever you do. So thank you so much for watching and I shall see you in the next video. Bye guys.